Hey, welcome back. I'm Wes Stuckey with Security Solutions. Today we're going to be talking about TRENDnet Hive and switches. This is part 3 of our tutorial series on TRENDnet Hive. And today I'm just going to go through some basic features that you're going to want to enable on your WebSmart managed switches. So if we go to our device list and we are on our switch tab, you can see that I already have some switches enabled here. This is the switch that we're going to be working with today. Also, I would mention while we're here, you can click this icon and you can show different columns of information for your devices. So one of the ones that I usually like to toggle on is a local IP, and that just helps me manage it locally if I need to. So the basic features of the switches that I like to enable are LLDP, DHCP Snooping, and a few other items. I'm not going to cover how to get your switch enrolled into Hive since I've already done that in part 1, so you can go back and look at that. It applies the same to a switch as it does to an access point. So we're going to go ahead and get into our switch right here. This is the basic configuration of the switch and some basic information. You also can look at information over a timeline. So at the top we can see what ports are connected, we can see our PoE ports, and we can see our internet ports. We can also look at CPU and memory, fan status, fan speed, and our PoE draw over a 24-hour period of time. There are also some logs here at the bottom. Here you can look at it a different way under switch view, and you can see what ports, what speeds, and MAC addresses. And then IP addresses you see are zeros. So if you hover over this icon, it'll tell you to enable DHCP Snooping so you can get those IPs. What that does is the switch will actually keep track of devices that get an IP address from the DHCP server, and they will record it in their table. So we can do that under the Security tab, DHCP Snooping Settings. Here we can enable DHCP Snooping. So if we go back to our switch view, there's still going to be zeros because these devices are not requesting an IP address actively. They have already requested an IP address. So to have this function, you're going to need to reboot your switch again, power cycle your devices, and then you'll have the IP addresses populated here. Any changes that we make in Hive need to be saved. So you can do that with the save icon up at the top. Now, if you want to reboot your switch, you can do so here under the device status. So now, after enabling DHCP Snooping and rebooting our PoE devices, that you can see here the IP addresses that they were able to get from a DHCP server, and you can also see the host names. So that's super helpful. You can also see traffic, and if you wanted to toggle PoE on and off to reboot a device, you could do so here as well. The next feature that I like to enable is here under Network, and it's loopback detection. So this is just a simple loopback detection. If you did have a cable and you looped it back into your switch, this would be able to detect it and prevent that from becoming a broadcast storm or taking your switch offline. Another feature worth mentioning here under Network is IGMP snooping. This would be for any of your multicast groups. So if you were doing AV over IP or any other type of multicast traffic, you would want to enable IGMP snooping, and this would allow your switch to create multicast groups and allow the multicast groups to function properly. LLDP is another feature that I like to enable. Currently, as of the date this video was made, you are not able to turn this feature on using Hive, so this has to be done outside of Hive. If we go back to our device list, remember I turned on the local IP address column? I can access my switch locally here. My username typically is going to be admin, and my password is going to be the password that I set up for this tenant, which could be found here. This is your device password. So I can simply use that password to log into my switch locally. And our goal here is to turn on LLDP, so I don't have a lot of menu items under my switch while it's connected to Hive. So I can go to the Hive icon here at the top and I can disable it real quick. Now I get my full list of features back. I can go back here under Network to LLDP Settings, and I can enable LLDP. Now I can go back here to the Hive icon, re-enable cloud mode, and reconnect it to the TRENDnet Hive cloud. So if I go back in my device now, LLDP will be enabled. And what LLP allows me to do is to create a topography of the devices that are connected to the switch. So that's going to help you here on the dashboard, because remember, we can go to this tenant and we can click on the topology icon and we can see here the devices that are connected and what port they're connected to. So you can see all this information because you have enabled LLDP. The next feature that I like to use is under PoE. Here we can see PoE devices and their draw. We can also give them a priority here. So if the switch ever went into an overdraw situation where you have more demand than you have power, you can give your devices priority, so you'll have your most important devices come online, and any remaining power budget will go to your low priority devices. Another big feature that a lot of installers are not aware of is PD Alive. So this will allow us to have this switch actively ping the devices connected to each port, and if they're PoE devices, be it an IP camera or an access point or any other PoE powered device, this would allow us to simply reboot that port if the device failed to ping after a certain interval. So we could just go ahead and set that up here. I can go back to my switch view. I can see that my 921 DAP is connected to port 3, and here's its local IP address. I can copy this IP address, go back to my PD Alive settings for port 3. I also need to enable this feature here at the top, and enable that, and enable the IP address here for that access point. I can poll it every 30 seconds. This says that if it fails twice, that it will power it off for 15 seconds, and then it will wait another 60 seconds for it to reboot before it starts to check this again. I like to increase this a little bit just so that my device has enough time to repower before I'm checking to see if it is responding again. And apply both of these settings. So now the switch is going to actively ping this device on port 3, and if for some reason it fails to respond, it will power cycle port 3. If you move your devices around a lot on your switch, you're going to want to take a look at this if you reconfigure it, because your devices will not match up to your ports that you've programmed. But for a fixed system, this is awesome. Now the next thing that I'll mention is if you have a device that goes offline and you can't exactly figure out why, you can go over here to Tools and you can go to Diagnostics. So here I can go to port 3. Let's say that device quit responding after a large storm and I can't get the device to power back up. So I can simply test this now, and I can make sure that my cable is okay before I send somebody out there to see why this camera or access point isn't coming back up. So that's it for the switches. Just remember, whenever you make changes, hit your save icon. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know. Reach out for more information. If you have ideas for future videos, please let us know. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks and have a great day.